Hello everyone. In this lecture series we are going to start a new topic which is reproduction in living organisms, and this is for class 10. Okay. As we know that reproduction is one of the fundamental processes in every living organisms. सभी लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म नो मैटर whether it is a unicellular organism or a multicellular organism, in every living organism reproduction is going to play an important fundamental aspect. Okay, why is that? Okay, why reproduction is so much important for every living organisms? There are several reasons why reproduction is important for all of us, okay, for including human being and all other organisms which are around us. So this helps to maintain the continuity of life in the planet, okay, because what will happen if the reproduction will cease to operate? So then there will be no formation of the offspring. What is produced? Because in the process of reproduction, offsprings are produced. Okay, offspring means child. Okay, so the offspring or new copies of the parent are getting produced in this process, okay, which is called as the offsprings. If the offsprings are not going to be produced, then the continuity of the life on this planet is going to cease. Okay, why is that? Because every living organism has a particular lifespan, and after which they are going to die. And if offsprings are not going to be produced, then the continuity of the life in this planet is going to cease. And the second and the most important feature of reproduction is to create variability, because one of the major thing that happens during reproduction is the fact that cell division होता है ये प्रोसेस पे, and cell division के प्रोसेस पे क्या होता है? One of the important key metabolic activity that happens, which is called as DNA replication. DNA replication. What happens in the process of DNA replication? Copies of DNA gets produced. For example, if you have one DNA, another copy of the DNA is going to be produced. Why is that? Because when the cell will divide into from one cell to two cells, so each cell will now get one copy of that DNA. And if the DNA is not getting copied, then what will happen? The DNA is going to reduce generation after generation, which is not a right thing. So for equally distributing the DNA, so the DNA is first needs to be copied or multiplied, and after that the division has to take place. And during the process of copying of the DNA, some variability can arise. For example, you are writing something, typing something, you tend to do errors. So the same way the DNA also can do errors while copying or making another copy, and this process is called as mutation. वो process को हम क्या बोलते हैं? Mutation बोलते हैं. We call that as mutation. So mutation is a process in which the DNA, during the process of DNA replication, some unwanted sequences come in the DNA due to errors, copying errors, right? And अगर ये errors होगा, so the variability might arise, because DNA helps to determine our character, and if the DNA changes, the character will change, right? And if the character will change, that character which is changing may be a good character or maybe a bad character, right? Or maybe a character that we want, or a character that we do not want, unwanted character. But if a character which is the change character which is developed is good, then it is really needed, right? And that is what variabilities are created, and these variabilities are sometimes good. They help to the new organism to adapt to a new circumstances. For example, a bacteria is growing, okay, and if the bacteria changes its character, and that character is helping that bacteria to survive in a antibiotic medium, so they will become antibiotic resistant bacteria. resistant bacteria. So that is how new characters are developed in each and every living organisms, which would be helping them to adopt a new environmental condition, and that is why variabilities are very good. And variabilities, especially in sexual reproduction, is more as compared to asexual form of reproduction, which we are going to discuss why that happens more in case of sexual reproduction later on. But at this point, just remember this thing, that in sexual reproduction the variabilities are going to be higher. And the second and the third and the last important one is the origin of new species. So new species is developed because if the mutation is going to be very drastic, significant, okay, that will change the appearance, character, everything, okay, and the morphological feature of a living organism, then it will be called as a new species, okay. So new species is therefore would be generated also. And also in this case, in sexual reproduction, generation of new species is far more a possibility as compared to asexual reproduction. But in both forms it will happen, but it will happen in a much more better way or pronounced way in case of sexual reproduction, okay. So this is the reason, okay, these are the fundamental reasons why reproduction is very much important to all of us, okay. Okay, reproduction can be broadly categorized into two types. One is the asexual reproduction and the other one is the sexual reproduction, okay. Let us understand the key differences between these two major type of reproductions, okay. If you look at asexual reproduction, okay, primarily the asexual reproduction, here the reproduction occurs without the formation of gametes, okay. So no gamete formation, okay. As no gamete formation occurs here, so the fusion of gametes also not going to come here. So gamete formation is not happening, fusion of gametes is not happening, okay. So how do they reproduce? They reproduce simply by a simple cell division process, which is called as mitotic process. So just by mitosis, okay, in the mitosis process, okay, what happens there? A single cell becomes two cells and the chromosome number remains equal, right? And by the simple mitosis process, the cell divides and form multiple copies, okay, of cells, and that is how a new organism is created, okay. So a simple mitotic division helps in the process of cell division. There is no formation of gamete, reunion of gamete, which occurs in the sexual reproduction, okay. So therefore, as gametes are not produced, so we don't need fusion, so we don't need two parents therefore, so only one parent therefore is involved in this process. But in sexual reproduction, what is going to happen? Gametes would be produced. The male organism is going to produce the male gamete, the female organism is going to produce the female gamete, the male gamete and the female gamete is going to be united with each other, okay. So therefore, ideally two parents are involved in case of sexual reproduction, but it is not always true, because there are some plants or some animals which are bisexual in nature. That means the same organism can produce both male gamete as well as female gamete. So in such cases, only one organism is also enough, okay. But two organisms, yes, two parents are usually required in higher plants, higher animals, okay. In all those groups of organisms, two parents are needed in sexual reproduction, okay. And in asexual reproduction, always one parent is involved. Please try to understand the differences between them, okay. Then what happens? This process doesn't involve gamete formation. I told you, okay. So gamete formation is not involved in this process. A gamete formation के time पे which kind of cell division is required? Because if you know that, what are gametes? Gametes are the cells which are produced from the living organisms, which consist of haploid number of chromosomes. Haploid means आधा okay, half copies of the chromosomes. Okay, for example, we all of us have 2 copies of each chromosome. For example, how many chromosomes a human being has? 46, right? And we 46, we call that as 23 pairs. Why we call it as 23 pairs? Because for each pair, for each copy, we have 2 chromosomes. For example, for chromosome number 1, we have 2 copies. For chromosome number 2, we have 2 copies. For 3, we have 2 copies, like that. Okay. So that is why each cell is therefore called as a diploid cell. Why it is called as a diploid cell? Because the cell consists of 2 copies of each chromosome. Okay. And when gamete is produced, only 1 copy of that chromosome comes. Okay, that is called as haploid, and that is produced by a type of cell division which is called as meiosis. Okay, ये सब आप लोग ने क्लास 9 में cell division में पढ़े होंगे, right? So meiosis is a type of cell division where the chromosome number is reduced to half so that it becomes कितना n हो जाता है. So chromosome number becomes n. Okay, आधा हो जाता है. आधा क्यों होता है? Because the male gamete and the female gamete is going to fuse. So n will come from the male gamete, another n will come from the female gamete, and both of them will fuse. And what is going to produce? The zygote, and the zygote is going to produce 2n. अगर यहाँ पे n नहीं होता, so what would have happened? So this would be 2n plus 2n. What would have happened? The zygote would have been 4n. So after each generation, the chromosome number would have been doubled, and that is what is not actually a right thing to have. Okay. So to maintain the chromosome number generation after generation, meiosis takes place. Okay, gamete formation or meiosis takes place. Okay, so therefore this involves gamete formation. यहाँ पे gamete formation होता है, and gamete is actually haploid. अगर haploid है तो यहाँ पे क्या होगा? Meiosis होगा, right? So the meiosis will take place here, and meiosis will not occur here. The only cell division that happens in asexual reproduction is mitotic division. But here meiosis occurs because meiosis is required for gamete formation. फिर mitosis क्यों लिखा हुआ है? Because after the zygote is formed, the zygote is going to divide and it is going to form embryo. And what is the process that would be followed here? Mitosis, right? So therefore both mitotic division as well as meiotic division is required for sexual reproduction, but only mitosis is required for asexual reproduction. Okay, and what is going to happen? It will maintain genetic homogeneity because it is developed from a single parent. That same DNA is getting copied. There is no mixing of 2 genomes is taking place here. Unlike sexual reproduction में क्या होता है? एक genome male से आया, एक genome female से आया, and both are getting united with each other. Okay, so as copies of chromosome from mother and father are getting united, so there are higher chances of variability in sexual reproduction. So genetic homogeneity is not maintained therefore here, but here it is going to be maintained. So new species here, new species, when I say cannot be, it's not like it cannot be developed at all. It can be developed, but the chances are much more rare as compared to here. The chances of development of new species are far more higher. Okay, so therefore it's not like it is cannot, it can be developed because new species are also developed by asexual reproduction, but the chances are much more rare as compared to here. So here the origin of new species is far more pronounced, okay, because of the union and recombination of the chromosome, because there is a process in meiosis that is happens that is called as recombination. Because of that recombination, the chances of variability is going to be far more higher in these kind of organisms which reproduces sexually. Okay, so these are the major differences between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. What happens in asexual reproduction? It is only a simple mitotic division that helps to create a new species, a new organism. Okay, but here in sexual reproduction, first gamete formation happens. These gametes unite, that produces the zygote. The zygote undergoes embryogenesis to produce the embryo, and from the embryo new organism is produced. So it is a far more complex process, and if you just look at the timeline, so this is going to be a much more rapid process, asexual reproduction. So this is going to be rapid, and this is going to be a very slow process. For example, bacteria, okay, they reproduce asexually, and their timeline of growth, okay, is much more faster, okay, very fast, okay. And for example, a bacteria like E. coli, okay, one of the most common bacteria, they can reproduce in every 18 minutes, so quick. And it is because they reproduce asexually without going through such a complicated process of gamete formation, union, embryogenesis, and so many different things, okay. But there are certainly some advantages of sexual reproduction. What are the advantages? More variabilities can be created, and those variabilities are good, right? They may be sometimes good, not always good, by the way. These variabilities can be sometimes good, and if the variabilities are good, they will help them protect in a new environment better, okay. They will give them the adaptability to accustom to the new environment. So these are the advantages of sexual reproduction, okay. So in the next class, we are going to continue with the different types of asexual reproduction that occurs in different diverse group of living organisms. Thank you very much.